Jon Mendez here. We're just doing another of our how-tos. This one's all about coming back in the dark. Richard, my cameraman, and I have been out this afternoon for a little potter along the Dorset coast, and it's actually got a bit darker a bit earlier than we anticipated, and a bit colder. It's blooming freezing. Anyway, so we thought we'd do a little video of coming into Poole Harbour for you and just give you an insight. So I got the chart out, had a little look at my cunning plan, and then I've put it in the plotter because, let's face it, the plotter is so good and so useful. We don't have radar on this boat, so we need to be really cautious, but that's all really quite sensible. A few little things about night, particularly if you're looking for a windscreen, it can appear darker than it really is quite easily, and it makes spotting things quite difficult, both things that are lit and unlit. If you think you've seen anything which is in the way, then slow down or take avoiding action. It's really easy to misidentify things. And have a clear plan in your head of what you're going to do before you set off. So we'll just run through ours with you and then we'll set off. So we're just bobbing down here at the approach of Poole Bay and then into Poole Harbour itself. We've got old Harry down in the background, which is down here. And we're going to come up the main channel, and we're going to use the main channel all the way through the harbour and all the way up to where we started from, which is Port of Poole up on this corner here. Now, the reason I use the main channel at night is we don't get, unless there's some really dodgy fishermen, any lobster pots or unlit items in the main channel. We have got a smaller boat channel on the outside of the main channel, but that's got a load of unlit posts down the port side of it, so one has to be extremely careful. So I'm a big fan of, if there's no major shipping, use the main channel. We'll keep to the starboard side of it, so we're obeying the standard harbour rules, and we'll be passing reasonably close to all the green starboard lateral marks. On the way in, we've got mostly greens. We've got a southerly cardinal on the entrance to Poole Harbour itself. No chain ferry, it's gone for its annual service. And then we've got another couple of cardinals just as we come around the bend here, which allow us to gauge when we make our turns, because all of this has lights on it, all the land. That makes it really hard to spot our marks. And because Poole's got more than one channel, very easy to mistake the lights you think you're wanting with the lights you actually want. And the channels have very similar lighting, so one has to be really, really careful. Now, the greatest thing we can think about to aid us is that Poole Harbour is not particularly deep, except in the main channel. So it shows a maintained depth of 7.5 metres. So as long as we're near low tide, as long as we've got about 8 metres showing, we must be in the main channel. Everything else is too shallow. So we've even no navigation lights. We can find our way home. The nav lights allow us just to be really precise with our information. So all I've done as part of my homework before I go out is plot my route home, just in case. So into the plotter, I've done pretty much the route I described on the chart there. And I haven't marked every turn because the channel has a few winds in it. So I've picked out the major turning points, and that gives me 10 waypoints from the entrance to home. So that's about a simplification of what we actually do, but that's pretty sound. At least we've got something to allow us to work out what's happening. Okay, so we've waited for it to get pretty much dark. The lights are coming on in the channel. We can see the moon has risen. Nice big moon, spring tides, nice lot of water moving. We're just going to take it gently, about 8 knots, just so you can take in what's happening. Just bring the speed up. So we're just coming up to my third turn point. Some people like to have them written out in a sheet. I've got the plotter in front of me. I've been in and out of here a few times. Mentally as I go past, because I've got my plotter in north up and I did my chart in my head north up, I'm quite aware where my turn marks are. So this is number 7. All the starboard hand marks are odd. So we're 1, 3, 5, 7. Number 7 is my turn point. We're coming very gently around to port. We're coming up to the entrance to the harbour in between the two breakwater parts, and I've got my first of my cardinal marks. The other crucial thing at night is that spotting other vessels is much more difficult. I've got a little boat moving across my bows down there. I'm seeing white over red, which means at the moment I'm in a giveaway position to him. I expect him to turn and come out down my port side, but now I've spotted him, I need to monitor, make sure we're safe. So So I've just gone a little bit closer to this green one than ideal, but I wanted you to just understand how hard it is to pick these things out amongst the lights on the land. There's so many lights in Poole Harbour. That's the thing that makes it interesting. So there's one of our marks, nice and close. Just to give you an idea, there's all the shore lights. And there's a second set of reds and greens throughout this harbour, all the way down inside. It's really crucial that you work out what you're looking at before you get there. So we're coming up to our next turn, just off the bow now, and then we'll turn towards the bright lights in the distance. That's Poole Quay. Right, we're just approaching my next bend, which is actually turn 8. So we've come into the harbour, we had a cardinal and a green, and then we've had another green, and now we've come up to one green, which is one every 3 seconds. That's my starboard lateral mark. And then on the other side, I've got an east cardinal flashing 3, nice white light. That's my guide point for my next turn. And hopefully you can appreciate that picking the lights out with the right sequence amongst all the other lights is quite difficult. You need to know the sequence, you need to know where to look. So now, having done that, we've got one more green, which is just coming up on the bow now. We've got one, I'll do a flash sequence for you. Green, 2, 3, 4. So that's one every 3 seconds. There it goes. 1, 2, 3. Green again. So we've got another green, one every 3. And then behind that, we've got another cardinal. And that's a south cardinal. And that's our turn point for turning into our little port. So that's down there in the distance. Quite happy where we are now. So out the window now, windscreen I suppose, just off my starboard bow, we've got the cardinal, which marks one of the small channels coming in, and that will flash in a moment. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That instantly tells me it's a west cardinal. We're passing to the west of it, so that's all happy days. And then just behind this, I'm starting to make out the black loom of the next green light. So that's a lateral mark, green marker coming up. Again, we can count it for you. 1, 2, 3, green. No, so one every 5. That's cool. Okay, so that's this little one on the screen here, and you'll see the purple line down the centre of my chart plotter. That's the intended track that I've drawn on using my waypoints, and you'll see we're just at the starboard edge of it, and that's correct because it's drawn down the middle of the channel. I'm keeping to the starboard side. There's the green buoy. Here it is out the window, just flashed. 2, 3, 4, 5. There it is again. So that's the right green. We've got last mark off the bow now, and then we're into our marina. And you can see amongst all the lights of Poole in the background, picking the right light is quite an interesting idea. So it's really good to think about what's the bearing from one light to the next. So we're travelling roughly 325. So when I look along 325, my next light should be on 325, flashing nicely for me. Just got to spot it. So just as I've turned very gently to port there, and the reason I did was my depth had dropped a fraction, just under 8 metres, so I knew I was at the edge of the channel, turned back in, we're back to 8.5, and now on my bow, I've got my south cardinal, that's Stakes Buoy, that's where we're going to go to, so south cardinal, 6 and a long one. Once we get there, we'll see the entrance to Port of Poole right on the corner, and we can sneak in. Because of the port lights, the marina is actually quite well lit, not as scary as some. But finding the light I need amongst all these background lights, that's difficult. That is difficult. You've got nowhere to look. So I've just brought us to a gentle halt. We're right by Stakes South Cardinal. That's sitting just off my bow. And that's where we can conclude, because it's a little bit of over there and into the marina. I think we'll be going for a small warm cup of tea. So hopefully you can take out, you need a bit of pre-planning. You need to know what the sequence of the next light that you're looking for, where it will be in relation to the boat, and how much background light there is. Does that make it really easy or really difficult to work out? Will you spot it quickly? Stay safe, keep warm.